Hey everybody, it's author Tonya Ellis, and guess who I'm having on Write This today? Author Andrea J. Loney, and I am so excited to have her on to learn about her author journey and more about her amazing books, which I love, and she's got some new chapter books coming out, so we'll hear all about them today. And I'm going to invite her in just a second. We had a little technical difficulties a few minutes ago, so we got those. So we'll be inviting her on. I became acquainted with her about a year ago in her work, and it is amazing. Her picture book, Double Bass Blues, had me near in tears when I was reading it. So I can't wait to learn about the background of her books and all that she's doing. So let me get on here. We're waiting on her to come. I know she's here because I was just talking to her a minute ago, and we'll hear about her amazing story. And she has done so many interesting things. She lives out on the West Coast, and she is a wonderful author. But let me see where she is. I was just talking to her a minute ago, and I thank all of you all for coming. I see a lot of my author friends. Sugar Cookie Books is here. And one of my aunts is on. I'm happy to see you. Okay, I see Andrea is here. So I'm going to send her invitation, invite her on, hear all about her amazing author journey and story. So we've got your invite in there, Andrea.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. I see you. And
Okay, so I was set up incorrectly here.
but I didn't give you clear instructions, so it's my
All
fault.
right.
So we're so happy to have you here, and thank you so much for taking the time. So I've been wanting to get you on for a while, especially after I read Double Bass Blues, Audrey.
Oh,
It was just so beautiful. You had me in tears reading it. It was just such a lovely story. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey?
oh wow. Well, let's see. I've always liked writing from when I was very little, like I don't know, like three. I guess I was making up stories. And my mom has in my baby book that I would have like all these elaborate stories with my dolls and the doll houses and the feuding doll houses and intrigue and all that kind of stuff. So it's something that I've been into for a while. I went to NYU for dramatic writing, playwriting, and screenwriting. And then I joined a circus because that's what one does after getting a master's degree. And which was great because at the circus, I learned a great work ethic because everything you do when you're working affects everybody else around you. So I learned about the importance of community and work. And also, I learned that you can tell a story in all different ways. You can tell a story with acrobats and elephants and horses and clowns. And I learned a lot about, I think in college they called it Aristotle's poetics, right? Where he talks about like the different elements of what makes a story. And I remember thinking when I first learned about it in college that spectacle was just like, oh, that's just like trashy stuff for like silly people. Like we want real serious stuff. And then when I actually saw how spectacle worked in the circus and watching like you show people this or they expect something and then you show them that and then the reactions that they have or just some of the things that the clowns did, I was like, wow, this is storytelling in a form that I never thought of before. And it had a big effect on me. After that, I moved to Hollywood, moved out here to California, and worked in the film and television industry for a while. And liked telling stories, loved seeing my words come to life, was not that real excited about the actual industry part of it. But I discovered children's books and writing children's books while I worked at Disney with some of the most creative people I've ever met in my life. And yeah, the first time I tried to write children's books, I got 6 rejections, and I was like, oh, I guess this just isn't meant to be. And I got very sad, and I gave up for a while. And then I came back, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the classes. I'm going to take the rejection. I'm going to learn. I'm going to tell people what I actually do as opposed to like I write children's books, don't tell anybody, kind of thing. And I got many rejections until something sold.
Now, what kept you? Well, first of all, originally, are you from New York? Is that New York or the East
I
Coast?
lie and tell people I'm from New York when I want them to think that I'm cool, but actually I'm from New Jersey.
Oh, okay. So
Um,
and then what made you want to get, why the circus, NYU circus? Like, what made you go
you
to this?
know, it's really funny because it kind of speaks to a lot of what's happened with my career just in general. When I was very excited to go to NYU, and most of the things I wrote about were like, relationships I had with people and stuff like that as like, in high school and in college. And then when I left NYU with my master's, I wanted to teach. And I approached all these colleges, and I like still was not through puberty yet completely. So I kind of talked like this, and I was really tiny. And someone told me, you know what? You're really smart. You know your stuff. You have no experience with anything besides being a student.
Wow.
Why don't you go out and get some life experience, and then maybe we'll hire you? And I was so insulted because I'd studied so hard for that interview, because that's what I did with my interviews. I studied the companies. And I got mad, and like nobody was going to hire me because I had too many degrees for the kind of jobs I was doing before. And the kind of jobs I wanted to do, I couldn't get hired because I was 22 and I looked like I was 12. and, and I didn't really present myself well, I guess. And then the circus was looking for crew people. And I was like, well, this is living. I could run away and join a circus, and then I'll have something to write about that isn't about college. And when I got to the interview for the circus, where I was dressed in like, I wore a dress, I wore heels, and I'm walking through like gravel to a trailer past elephants and horses for this interview that I was completely inappropriately dressed for, because I wanted to be a crew person, but I was used to being an office girl in Manhattan. And luckily, the general manager who I sat down with was a huge history buff and a theater buff. So he was fascinated by the fact that I had just come out of NYU. And we spent 2 hours of my interview discussing the history of the circus, which of course I studied for the interview to be a crew person because I was 22 and ridiculous. And we talked about how the history of the circus related to the history of the military and just all these things. And we were just like having this meeting of the minds. And he was like, well, clearly you're going to be here and that's where your desk is going to be. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be a crew girl. I'm going to be like swinging a sledgehammer. I'm tired of being in the office all the time. I want to do something fun. And they said, okay, we'll let you help break down the tent one time. And if you really want to do that, you could go in that direction. If not, we would love to have you in the office because you have all these great Microsoft Office skills. And sure enough, I got hired, wore completely inappropriate clothes because I just didn't have bumming around kind of clothes. And when we tried to break the tent down, I split this nail down the middle. And I started crying. And this gigantic dude with like a missing tooth named Jimbo came and just scooped me up and carried me to the office. And everybody's like, okay, so here's your desk and here's a little mug for you. And you can just work on this spreadsheet. And then I like kind of lost myself in the spreadsheet. And that was that.
That
And yeah.
thing is just so interesting. So then from there, you did that. How long did you do that?
I traveled with the circus for a year, about a year. And then I had a screenplay that I had submitted to a contest, and it won. It was a semi-finalist in the contest. So all these people were looking for me, because all these producers were looking for me and directors, because they were thinking, well, maybe we could do something with her screenplay. And this is before there was a lot of like cell phones. This is a long time ago. So they were calling my mom, and my mom's like, well, she's not here. She's in a circus, and I don't really know where she is. And they're like, oh my gosh, we have to talk to her. She's in a circus. So finally I met someone who's like, oh yeah, just come to LA and we'll like make your movie. And then you can go back to the circus, or you can go to San Francisco and open the children's theater you want to open. And then I moved to LA thinking I'll just be here for a moment. We'll just make the movie. Because again, I was 23 now and probably just as ridiculous as I was at 22. And I had a screenplay that got optioned every year for 10 years. I
Um,
had a development deal with Disney for a while, but not much came out of that whole thing. It was a lot of hurry up and wait and meetings and things kind of falling through. And then I ended up writing for the TV show Chicken Soup for the Soul, which you can actually go on YouTube and look up my episodes of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And it's cool because the comments are like, this made me cry so hard, I lost my contact. And I'm like,
and then so you are a great person to talk to about dealing with rejection because that's a huge part of the writer's life. Can you speak to that? How did you deal with it?
um, it's really funny. The first time I tried to write the children's books and I put my heart and soul into these pieces and I sent it out and I'd get like, well, either no response or a form rejection. I was just like, they're probably sitting in this office looking at this and laughing at me.
Huh.
They just think I'm a terrible person for even. I was just telling myself all these horrible things. And like I said, some of my experiences in Hollywood didn't really help that kind of a mindset. And that was part of the problem that I had where I latched onto one manuscript, even though I wrote other manuscripts. I'm like, this is the one that has to happen. And it didn't happen. And I was completely heartbroken that that thing didn't happen. And like I really had trouble getting over it. So when I decided I was going to do the children's books for real, I said, okay, what did I do? I don't want to say wrong, because it's all a growth process, right? You learn about yourself as you do these things. What did I do last time in my writing career that I do not want to do this time? And I didn't want to keep getting heartbroken when someone said no to me or said no to my work. I didn't want to take it personally. I want to make a separation between this is my work and this is me. And while we may be connected, we are separate. And most importantly, I wanted to just keep moving forward. Now, the thing that helped me do this is another side trip. Um, I had a really terrible breakup with a guy who I swore was my soulmate. I will refer to him as soulmate number 6. Uh, I was sure this was the one. And it was so bad. I thought, like, you know what? I feel like this breakup could destroy me. I need to do something to get over it. So I decided to take a stand-up comedy class and take the sad story that I was telling about our breakup and turn it into this hilarious comedy. And I would laugh and everybody would laugh. And what ended up happening is I have never been able to deliver that routine without crying.
Oh my goodness.
But I wrote all these other routines. So then I ended up performing at the Laugh Factory, the Comedy Store, the Improv, and I was a paid stand-up comedian for like about a 3-year period. I hosted a show and all this other stuff. And when you do stand-up comedy, that is the most immediate feedback you will ever get in any art form, even more than like say something like Twitter. You type something and you wait for someone. No, when you're doing stand-up comedy, people are responding or they're not, or they're heckling you. So at first it was really, really mortifying. But I had a comedy buddy because we were in a class and you had to write your jokes with another person. You had to help each other with your jokes. And what she would do is I would like be on stage dying and I come down off stage and like, why do I hate myself so much that I'm doing this? And she would say, they didn't laugh because you were too far from the mic and you didn't put yourself into your performance. You were basically performing to your shoes. So we're going to go to another mic in an hour. And this time you're going to lift your head this much. You're going to put your shoulders back and you're going to pretend to be that person that you're talking about and really get into it. And then the next time I got laughs. So basically what she did, and I'm so grateful. Her name was Karen Ruby. She's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Nothing was you're bad, you're wrong, you shouldn't be doing this. Everything was like, there was a problem. Let's figure out why. and let's try to correct for it in the next thing that we do. And that made the biggest difference to me, because now I'm not saying that I don't get upset when I get rejected, but it doesn't like have that same effect that it had before, because I got rejected a zillion billion times a night as a stand-up comedian until I started getting laughs. And even within those laughs, some jokes work and some don't. You just move on to the next one.
Right. This is amazing. I didn't know that about you. So basically, you've been involved in all kind of elements of performance, in different areas of performance and just creativity, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell us about your works. I've talked about a little bit about
Oh, yeah, that.
yes, and then your chapter books as well. Your new upcoming chapter books. Tell us about those.
Okay, so the most recent book I have out, and I'm going to get it over here. Oh, sorry. Is Curve and Flow,
Oh, yeah.
the elegant vision of LA architect Paul R. Williams. And I'm really excited about this. I actually just came back from a school visit that was like, I don't know, somewhere like here or something, in Pasadena, where they're studying all the things that were in my book. So it was really kind of cool to talk to them about it. And it's just, this man was in love with Los Angeles and showed his love by building like 3,000 structures, including that spidery looking space building outside of LAX. He worked on the Fountain Room, and the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel, all that kind of stuff. And he made houses for stars, and he also made houses for just all kinds of regular people in Los Angeles. So it's been really, really wonderful to share this book with other people, because it's something that I've been working on for years.
Right.
And and now it's out, and then I get to hear other people's stories about him.
Hold it higher so we can see it again.
Oh, sorry.
That is so. Love the illustrations.
And the illustrator is Keith Mallett, who was the illustrator of my first book. Hold on, let me do this without getting hit on the head with a book. All right. Take a picture of me, James Vanderzee. Yeah, it's the same illustrator.
Oh.
And this was my very first book, and this is my most recent book.
Yeah.
So that part's really cool, and I'm so lucky that I was able to even get him, because he's always super busy. But he lives in Los Angeles too, or not Los Angeles. He lives in California, Southern California. So he put so many wonderful little details that I didn't even have to say anything about, but it was just in there. So it's it's a really happy thing to talk about and to think about. And also in this, I talk about redlining. I talk about sundown towns, because the house that I live in right now, this used to be a sundown town in Inglewood. The deed to our house says that I'm not allowed to live here.
What? Oh my.
Because our house was built, I want to say it was 1924. 1924, yeah, or 1925, and they had covenant laws here that said that only Caucasian people are allowed to live in the house, spend the night in the house, all of that, and there'd be trouble if there was anybody else that was in there, and specifically no black people, kind of a thing. Although they didn't use that word, they used other words. And I just thought about it's one thing for me to live here now, but what was it like for him in the 1920s and into the 1930s, making these houses that multi-million, well, lots of, maybe not multi-million, but super expensive houses in Beverly Hills, but he couldn't even be there when the sun went down. And he couldn't go in through the front door, even though he's the architect.
Right. That's incredible. I haven't read that book of yours. I need to get that one and read it. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm really glad I was able to do that. And at the school that I just went to, they were talking about how they're talking to the children now about the history of redlining and housing inequity in Los Angeles County, because a lot of people see Los Angeles as a very open and liberal place, and it definitely is. I mean, so many dreams came true for so many people here and continue to, but there's also that side of it. Then there's Abby in Orbit. This is my uncorrected proof because I still don't have a copy of this book because of the supply chain issues. It was supposed to come out September 1st, then September 18th, and now it's coming out November 22nd. But it's about a little Afro-Latina girl who lives on the International Space Station with her family. And here we go. Here's her mom and her dad. Her mom is Panamanian, like my daddy's Panamanian. Her dad's from Houston. Her little brother is adorable, gets away with everything and has no worries because that's how little brothers can be. And Abby herself is, when I started on the project, they told me they wanted like a little black Anne of Green Gables in space with focus issues. And I'm like, I am so on this. This is my wheelhouse. Every last bit of that. So it's been really fun to write from the point of view of a very distracted, big-hearted, energetic little girl who always has a song in her head and is always ready to bust a move, but sometimes gets a little out of hand, goes too far, gets upset about what's going on, and then finds a way to bring everything together and see her distractibility as an asset and not just a liability.
That's
So it's funny, and it's great to write something funny because I was working on Curve and Flow and feeling really, really sad for what Paul had to go through. I mean, the fact that he had this dream house that he wanted for years and he wasn't able to build it until he was like in his 60s. It took him 40 years to get the house that he wanted. And then also at the same time, I was working on VIP Stacey Abrams.
right.
Shout out to Stacey. We love her. We love her. We love her. And we wouldn't be where we are right now if it wasn't for her.
Mhm.
And working on this book was very emotional for me. First of all, because Stacey and I are about the same age, so I remember a lot of things that were going on that were also going on for her and how it affected me, and just the history of what her family went through with trying to vote in during the Jim Crow South. Um, and it's interesting because like my dad had none of those experiences in Panama, right? It was a whole different thing there, a whole different way of living. But my mom's side of the family that's been in this country since like, I don't know, the 1700s or something, went through all of those things in the South, in North Carolina, and in my grandma's case in Alabama. And it's very sad to think about everything that they had to do and what kind of changed and what really didn't change. What basically stayed the same and got upgraded into a 21st century digital version of voter suppression and all of that. So being able to work on Abby in Orbit and say, because this book is set in 2051, it's like, okay, so in 30 years, we figure this all out. It's all good.
Right.
And now we can just have a little girl bopping around in space or her friends having a good time. So being able to work on this and have and to instill hope for the future, and to instill African American and Black people in the future, not just in the past, not just the black and white stories about this is when we conquered racism and that's gone because the book says so. Like, no. And I love the idea of projecting as far into the future as possible and seeing us there. It's something I tell my students all the time is, I'm doing what I do because I really hope someday that I can imagine you dancing at your great grandchild's wedding.
Yeah.
Like that's how far I'm seeing for you. And I mean it. I really, really mean it.
Now, question, Andrea, is Abby in Orbit a chapter book or how?
It's a chapter book series
Oh,
for ages 7 to 10.
okay, cool. Yeah. And when is it going to be available? When can?
It's due to come out November 22nd. So
Oh,
you could scoop up a copy of it ahead of time and have some goodies ready for when it shows up. And it's something that you can share with your family at Thanksgiving time, or it would make a lovely holiday gift,
okay. Well,
especially.
the show notes for that so they can get their pre-order to get ready.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Abby likes a show. I made a Spotify station for the book, like just songs that remind me of her and little kids in space kind of thing. So, fun things to listen to while you do. I have my swag I'm gonna be giving away.
Oh,
Oh, Abby and Orbit keychain and things like that, stickers.
and I haven't seen a chapter book series like set in space like that. So that's going to be really cool for kids and something different for them.
Yeah, another thing that's kind of cool about, because it is an international space station, and I spent a lot of time researching every one of these books in the series and all like the real science of the existing space station that's up over us or around us, wherever it is right now. I have at the end, there's Abby's vocabulary. Let's see if I can show it to you this way. And it's the words that are used throughout the story, either scientific words or words from other languages. There's someone in the ship who is Russian. There's somebody there who speaks Mandarin Chinese, that sort of thing. And then, of course, Abby's mom speaks Spanish and Spanglish. And Abby's orbital observation, real science for kids way back in the 2020s. And that is because, again, Abby's dad is in third grade right now, basically, because, again, it's 30 years in the future. So in any case, that's where I put in the real science related to this made up story.
Right. This sounds great. It reminds me, and then I'm thinking of the Jetsons. Remember that old cartoon, the Jetsons, and different things like that. So I can't wait to get hold of this.
I had a lot of fun writing it. And it's really funny because, again, it's another aspect of the pandemicness of this book for me is a big part of the story is about how Abby relates to her family and her friends. I based a lot of the characters on people in my life. Like her relationship with her mom is basically my relationship with my mom, because my mom's like super duper brilliant. But she's like, you need to do this, and why aren't you doing this? And I'm just kind of like, ah! And
Yeah,
it's
it kind of made me think of you when I'm looking at you, or just for doing different things and all that. And it sounds like it's so much fun.
It is a lot of fun, and I feel like it's a way that, for me, writing it was a way to connect with my family members who I wasn't able to see while I was like basically here locked up for all that time where I couldn't go anywhere. And yeah, and I think it comes through. It's fun to think about people who you love, or like one of my faculty advisors is a character in here, and spend time with them in that way. It's a lot of fun.
That's neat to hear that background, you know, going into the story when we read it. So that's wonderful. Well, I want to thank you for taking this time. And I'm so happy to sit down with you and learn a little bit more about you, Andrea, because I knew a little bit about the circus, but really you just have so much creativity. Now, one
Yeah.
question I was thinking of as you were speaking, is your family artistic like you, or are they involved in different creative pursuits like you are?
It's really interesting. My father's side of the family, like I'm first generation American on my dad's side of the family. So on my dad's side of the family, they are primarily motivated by, can you make money at this? So even when I was working in Hollywood, and I'm like, look, I got my name, my byline on a TV show written by Andrea J. Loney. My dad's like, yeah, but what's that executive producer job? What is that? And I was like, oh, they go to meetings. I don't want to do that. I just want to tell these stories. My mom's side of the family is different. My mom's side of the family, first of all, my grandpa was played concert piano and jazz piano. I mean, he played with like famous people. He played with the London Philharmonic during World War II, which was like unheard of for a black man to do something like that. He went to Juilliard. Yeah, so on that side of the family, by the time, like when you get a new house, you get a piano. Grandpa gets you a piano so that there's a piano in the house. And everybody plays a musical instrument. I played the piano and the xylophone. Now I play a kalimba, and I just got a ukulele because I'm a children's book writer, and evidently that's what we do. And when a baby's born on that side of the family, on my mom's side, we all kind of look at the baby and we try to guess what their art form is going to be by
Right.
what it is that they do as a baby. And we like kind of like go back, oh, this one's going to be a singer, this one's going to be a dancer, this one's going to be a whatever. So it's a big thing in our family. Like, no matter what you do for money, you always have to be doing your art because, like, God put that in your heart for you to share it with other people, or to at least share it with yourself because that's something that you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So we all take that very seriously in my family.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Right. This is really cool to hear just how an artist is born and what your influences were as you were coming up. So that's really cool. Well, I'm happy that you took this time with us, and I'm going to be sharing the pre-order links for Abby and Orbit and your other books and the links for the interview. And then can you tell people where they can find you and connect?
Okay, okay, you can find me. My website is andreajloney.com. You can find me at Andrea J. Loney on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. I'm author.Andrea J. Loney. I am also on TikTok. I'm practicing my dance moves so I can post some more.
That.
I'm trying to learn how to floss, but it doesn't really look like floss when I do it. It just looks like I'm like having problems with the girdle, it's just bad.
I try not to dance too much, honestly. Oh no. Yes, well, thank you. And just really, I feel like I could have another interview another time about just creative process and inspiration, because listening to you, I can see how all these things can help come to make an artist and get that creativity. Because you could do like a course on creativity and that kind of stuff. Because I've
I
talked
do.
times, yeah, this is so cool to me. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. And
Thank you so much for inviting me.
yes. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Write This. And this is what I think you can go back and re-listen to and take notes, because we've heard so much about her journey and just how an artist becomes an artist and how different parts of your life can come together to help get that creativity flowing. So thank you again for sharing that. And thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you next time for another episode of Write This. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.